My friends, there comes a time in every life when we must finally reclaim our breath, our voice, and our peace. A time when we understand that not everyone who hears us is truly listening. Some people are not seeking truth, they are seeking confirmation of their own noise. And if you keep pouring your soul into hands that are closed, you will spend your life exhausted instead of understood. You must learn this sacred truth. Your worth is not measured by who accepts your explanation. You do not grow stronger by pleading for your humanity to be recognized. You grow stronger by standing firmly in it. Sometimes silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the quiet power of knowing that you do not need to convince anyone of your intentions, your goodness, or your path. When a person cannot see your heart, more words will not help them find it. When a mind is closed, even the brightest truth cannot enter. Walk away from those who twist your meaning. Release those who only listen to argue. Set boundaries with those who drain your spirit and call it conversation. Your life is too precious to waste it translating your soul for people committed to misunderstanding you. Stand tall, speak once. Speak clearly, and if they still do not listen, let your silence speak the rest. There is a quiet lesson life teaches us again and again, often through disappointment, often through heartbreak. Your worth is not something that can be handed to you by another person. It does not grow when someone praises you, and it does not shrink when someone criticizes you. Worth is an inner truth, a deep-rooted knowing, a sacred inheritance you are born with. Yet many people spend years of their life explaining their intentions, their dreams, their mistakes, their hopes, all in the desperate attempt to be understood. They cling to the idea that if others could just see their heart clearly, they would finally feel accepted. But acceptance is not the birthplace of worth. It is only the reflection of someone else's perception, and perception is a fragile thing to depend on. There will always be people who misunderstand you not because you are unclear, but because they are committed to holding on to their own assumptions. They listen through filters you did not create. They hear your words through the echoes of their own fears, insecurities, and past wounds. They believe what aligns with their own world view, not necessarily what aligns with reality. When you explain yourself to them, you are not being evaluated by truth, you are being measured against their biases. And no matter how beautifully, gently, or honestly you speak, some people will still choose to misinterpret you. If you build your sense of worth on their understanding, you will spend your life living on unstable ground, always shifting, always proving, always defending yourself against a judgment you never deserved. True self-worth requires you to stand firm even when you are misunderstood. It asks you to recognize that misunderstanding is not a reflection of your character, but of someone's limited vision. When people fail to see your heart, that does not mean your heart is any less pure. When people fail to acknowledge your effort, that does not mean your effort is any less meaningful. When people question your motives, that does not mean your motives are any less sincere. Worth is not a mirror held by the world, it is a flame burning within you. It does not flicker because someone else closes their eyes. It does not dim because someone chooses to look away. And it does not go out simply because someone refuses to understand. Every time you explain yourself to someone who is not willing to listen, you surrender a small piece of your peace. You hand over your emotional energy to a person who has no intention of valuing it. You place your heart in the hands of someone who is not holding theirs with care. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to believe that your identity must be constantly justified. But who told you that you were responsible for convincing the world of your goodness? Who told you that people must agree with your path for it to be the right one? There is a quiet strength in learning to walk with your head high even when someone misreads your intentions. There is power in choosing not to waste your breath on ears that only want noise instead of truth. As you grow, you will begin to realize that the people who matter do not need long explanations. They feel your sincerity without effort. They see your character in your actions. They understand your heart even in the silence between your words. With them, you do not feel the urge to defend yourself, you simply feel free. Your worth shines brightest around people who do not require evidence of it. These are the souls who recognize you, not because you explain yourself well, but because they listen with honesty, empathy, and care. And their presence reminds you that you were never the problem. You were simply speaking to the wrong audience. When you finally release the need to be understood by everyone, a new kind of peace enters your life, the peace that comes from belonging first to yourself. You begin to speak with clarity rather than desperation. You begin to act from purpose rather than fear. You begin to choose where your energy goes instead of scattering it everywhere in hopes of being accepted. Your worth becomes something sacred again, not up for debate, not dependent on approval, not affected by misunderstanding. You realize that those who are meant to walk with you will walk with you, and those who cannot understand you were never meant to carry your truth. And in that realization, something beautiful happens. You stop explaining yourself to people who never truly listened, and you start listening to yourself. There is a profound difference between hearing and listening, yet many wander through life treating them as the same act. Hearing is passive, a simple bodily function, but listening requires presence, humility, and an open heart. Far too many people only hear the surface of what you say, catching the rhythm of your voice but missing the truth beneath it. They react to your words without receiving your message. They prepare their response while you are still speaking. They listen with the intent to reply, not with the intent to understand. And when a person listens only half-heartedly, they understand only half, correctly, and misunderstand almost completely. Some people cannot truly listen because they are trapped inside the echo chamber of their own thoughts. They bring assumptions into every conversation, and those assumptions act like walls between you and them. Before you even begin to explain yourself, they have already built a story about who you are, what you meant, and why you said what you said. Their ears are open, but their mind is closed. Their attention is present, but their understanding is absent. It is like speaking into a room where the door is open, but the lights are turned off. Your words can enter, but nothing can be seen clearly once they do. There are also people who do not listen because listening requires them to confront something uncomfortable within themselves. Your honesty may challenge their insecurities. Your truth may expose their fears. Your perspective may threaten the narrative they have carefully constructed about the world. So instead of hearing you fully, they twist your words to fit their comfort. They bend your meaning so it aligns with their expectation. They shrink your voice until it no longer challenges them, and in doing so, they turn genuine communication into a battlefield of misinterpretation. When you speak to someone who refuses to listen, you will always feel emotionally tired afterward. It is the exhaustion of trying to build a bridge with someone who keeps tearing down the other side. It is the frustration of pouring clarity into a cup with a hole at the bottom. It is the sadness of realizing that no matter how lovingly or patiently you explain, your message will be filtered through a lens that distorts your truth. And if you are not careful, you may begin to think that the misunderstanding is your fault, that you must try harder, speak softer, or give longer explanations. But the failure is not in your communication. It is in their capacity to receive it. Yet, in contrast, the people who are meant for your life will listen with a different spirit. They will not only hear your words, they will feel your intention. They will pause before responding. They will ask questions to understand, not to challenge. They will hold your truth gently, as something valuable and worthy of respect. When you speak to them, you will feel seen rather than judged, heard rather than dismissed, understood rather than analyzed. These are the conversations that heal, not harm, the dialogues that build connection instead of conflict. Understanding this difference is the beginning of emotional freedom. When you realize that not everyone has earned access to your explanations, you begin choosing your audience with more wisdom. You stop throwing your sincerity into environments where it will be stepped on. You stop repeating yourself to people who have already decided not to listen, and you stop apologizing for meanings they distorted themselves. Your time becomes too precious to waste on people who only hear noise instead of truth. You learn that real communication requires two open hearts, and if the other heart is closed, your silence will speak more truth than your words ever could. There comes a moment in every person's life when they finally understand that silence is not emptiness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is not weakness. Silence, when chosen intentionally, is one of the strongest boundaries you can set. It's a declaration that you refuse to participate in cycles of misunderstanding, conflict, or disrespect. Silence says, "I will not waste my breath where it is not honored." Silence says, "I know my truth, and I'm not afraid to let it stand without explanation." It is the quiet confidence of someone who understands that peace is not found in arguing, but in refusing to engage where understanding is impossible. Silence is powerful because it prevents you from giving people access to your emotional world when they have not earned it. Words are bridges. They connect you to others, but bridges must be walked on with care. When someone crosses your bridge only to criticize you, misinterpret you, or tear down what you are trying to build, silence becomes your safeguard. It is the invisible gate you close to protect your inner landscape. It's your way of saying, "Not everyone deserves a seat at the table of my thoughts." When you choose silence, you choose self-respect over self-explanation. Many people misunderstand silence because they see it through the lens of their own insecurity. They assume your silence means defeat. They assume you have nothing to say. They assume you don't know how to respond. But the truth is often very different. Silence is rarely the absence of a response. It is the presence of clarity. It is knowing that continuing the conversation would only drain your spirit and distort your truth. It is recognizing that the person in front of you is not listening with the intent to understand. They are listening with the intent to challenge, discredit, or win. And when you see this clearly, silence becomes the only choice that protects your dignity. Silence also gives you power over your emotions. When people provoke you, they want a reaction. When people misunderstand you, they want you to defend yourself. When people twist your words, they want you to unravel. But silence teaches you discipline. It teaches you how to sit with your feelings rather than spilling them into spaces that trivialize them. It teaches you how to pause, breathe, and choose your responses instead of reacting impulsively. Silence is not passive. It is active self-control. It is the moment you take your power back from anyone who tries to pull you into chaos. There is another truth about silence that many overlook. Silence reveals people. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop justifying your decisions, when you stop feeding conversations that drain you, people show you who they truly are. The ones who cared only about arguing will grow restless without your energy. The ones who are never listening will no longer pretend. The ones who valued your voice will notice your quiet and ask if you are okay. Silence separates those who want to understand you from those who only wanted to extract from you. It shows you who needs to stay in your life and who needs to leave your peace. Most importantly, silence allows you to hear yourself again. When you step away from draining conversations, your own inner voice becomes louder. You begin to feel your own intuition again. You begin to remember what you believe, what you want, what you stand for. Silence is a return to self, a place where your thoughts are no longer crowded by people who refuse to hear you. It is a sanctuary where you rebuild the parts of yourself that were scattered trying to be understood. Silence is not the ending of communication. It is the beginning of clarity. There is a quiet exhaustion that settles into the soul when you spend too much of your life trying to be understood by the wrong people. It is not the kind of tiredness that sleep can fix. It is an inner depletion, the kind that comes from constantly translating your intentions, clarifying your character, and defending your heart. When you over-explain, you pour out more than just words. You leak your emotional strength, your mental peace, and your spiritual clarity. You give away the energy that was meant for your growth, your dreams, and your well-being. Over time, explaining becomes a burden, not a bridge. You start feeling like you are trying to prove your worth in conversations that were never meant to honor it. This draining cycle often begins with the hope of being understood. You think, if I could just say it better, maybe they would see me clearly. But the people who misunderstand you rarely do so because your explanation lacked precision. They misunderstand because they are listening through the fog of their own assumptions. They hear you through the filter of their insecurities, their fears, or their stubbornness. And no amount of explaining can change a mind that is determined to hold on to a particular version of you. But you keep trying anyway, not realizing that every extra sentence you speak is a piece of your peace slipping away. Over-explaining also dulls your spirit because it forces you into a position of emotional begging. Every time you try to justify your choices to someone who has no intention of accepting them, you are quietly asking for permission to be yourself. You are giving someone else the authority to decide whether your truth is valid, and slowly this creates a fracture in your spirit. You begin to doubt your instincts. You begin to question your decisions. You begin to believe that other people's opinions are more important than your own clarity. This is how over-explaining becomes a thief. It steals your confidence, your intuition, and your inner fire. There is also a spiritual heaviness that comes from explaining yourself to those who are determined not to understand you. You feel yourself shrinking with every conversation. You start rehearsing your sentences before you speak. You walk on emotional eggshells, afraid that the smallest misunderstanding will spark another exhausting dialogue. Your voice becomes softer, your truth becomes smaller, and your spirit becomes dimmer, not because your light is weak, but because you are shining it in places that refuse to open their eyes. The spirit cannot remain bright when it is forced to constantly defend its own glow. As you grow, you begin to realize that your energy is the most valuable currency you have. Where you place it determines the quality of your life. Over-explaining is a form of emotional overspending, giving too much away in places where the return is zero. You are not responsible for convincing anyone of your heart. You are not obligated to justify your boundaries, your past, your choices, or your healing journey. The people who are aligned with you will understand without needing paragraphs. The people who are not aligned will never understand, even if you write them entire books. Your energy deserves more than being wasted in explanations that fall on closed minds. And so, the moment you stop over-explaining is the moment you reclaim your power. You start valuing your voice instead of overusing it. You start trusting your own clarity instead of tailoring it for others. You start speaking with intention rather than desperation. Your spirit slowly begins to brighten again, not because you are louder, but because you are no longer draining yourself in the wrong places. You learn to say things once. You learn to stand in your truth without offering footnotes. You learn that the people who matter will meet your honesty with understanding, not interrogation. And in learning this, you finally stop giving pieces of your energy to conversations that were never worthy of your spirit. There is a gentle ease that enters your life when you finally meet people who understand you without requiring 1,000 words. With the right people, communication is not a battlefield, it is a bridge. You don't have to defend your intentions, dissect your feelings, or perform emotional gymnastics just to be heard. They listen with openness, not suspicion. They interpret your words with kindness, not judgment. Their hearts are turned toward you, not against you. and because of this they understand you quickly, fully, and without the need for lengthy explanations. Their presence becomes a reminder that connection should feel safe, not exhausting. The right people recognize your character in the smallest details. They see the sincerity in your tone, the honesty in your eyes, the consistency in your actions. They don't assume the worst of you because they have already witnessed the goodness in you. They don't twist your words into something darker because they see your light. They don't jump to conclusions because they trust your heart. With them, a simple sentence carries more truth than an entire speech ever could. You feel understood not because you explained yourself well, but because they listen well. And listening is a sign of both emotional maturity and genuine care. When you are around the right people, explanations become shorter because trust becomes stronger. You don't have to constantly clarify what you meant. You don't have to fight for your perspective. You don't have to tiptoe around misunderstandings. They give you space to be human, to misspeak, to be vulnerable, to be imperfect. They know your intentions even when your words spill out clumsily. They offer grace instead of criticism. They ask questions instead of making assumptions. This kind of connection feels like a soft place to land, a place where your truth is not questioned but welcomed. The wrong people, on the other hand, make you feel like every word needs a supporting document. You must explain your feelings, then explain why you feel them, then explain your explanation. Conversations with them feel like interrogations. Nothing is taken at face value. Everything is twisted, analyzed, or doubted. You walk away feeling misunderstood, unseen, and emotionally drained. But this contrast is important because it teaches you something essential. The problem was never your ability to explain, the problem was the listener. The right people decode your silence. The wrong people misinterpret even your clearest truth. The beauty of finding the right people is that they remind you of your own inner worth. When someone easily understands your heart, you stop questioning it. Their empathy reinforces your self-trust. Their calmness eases your self-doubt. Their ability to listen restores your belief that meaningful connection still exists. And the more time you spend with these kinds of people, the less patience you have for those who make you justify your existence. You begin to realize that communication should not feel like a courtroom. Your life should not be a series of explanations. Your heart should not be on trial. Ultimately, the right people make communication feel like breathing, natural, effortless, warm. They hear the meaning behind your words, not just the words themselves. They understand your intentions even before you finish speaking. They see your humanity and meet it with their own. And when you finally experience this kind of understanding, you stop wasting your time explaining yourself to those who refuse to listen. Instead, you invest your voice where it is valued. You invest your truth where it is honored. You invest your heart where it is safe. Because the right people don't need long explanations, they just need you to be real, and they will understand the rest. There comes a moment in every life when the soul whispers a truth we can no longer ignore. You are not obligated to stay where you are not valued. Walking away is not an act of disrespect. It is an act of deep, unwavering self-respect. It is choosing to protect your peace instead of sacrificing it. It is deciding that your emotional well-being matters more than winning an argument or forcing someone to understand you. Many people confuse endurance with strength, but real strength is knowing when to step back, when to stop explaining, when to stop pouring your energy into someone who refuses to receive it with care. Walking away is not giving up, it is choosing yourself. There are people who will call you selfish for choosing distance. They will say you are wrong for creating boundaries. They will label your silence as arrogance. But these words say more about them than they do about you. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries always see your self-respect as disrespect. They were comfortable with your silence, your tolerance, your over-explaining. They were comfortable with taking more from you than they returned. So when you walk away, they feel the loss of what you once gave freely access to: your energy, your time, your explanations. Do not let their discomfort trick you into believing you owe them anything more. Walking away is also a powerful declaration of inner clarity. It means you have finally recognized that not every battle deserves your presence, not every conversation deserves your voice, and not every person deserves your repeated explanations. It means you understand that your value cannot be proven. It must be recognized. When you walk away, you choose to no longer negotiate with people who twist your truth or challenge your sanity. You choose to stop participating in conversations that lead nowhere but deeper into frustration. You choose peace over chaos, truth over noise, and dignity over desperation. This is not disrespect, it is wisdom. There is a deep healing that begins when you remove yourself from places that do not honor you. At first, the silence feels unfamiliar. You may question whether you made the right choice. You may feel the pull to return, to explain, to clarify one more time, but then the clarity comes. You start to breathe deeper. Your thoughts become lighter. Your heart stops bracing for misunderstanding. Your mind stops rehearsing explanations. You begin to feel the weight that was silently crushing you, and you realize how heavy it truly was only after you put it down. Walking away makes room for your spirit to rise again. You also learn that leaving is not always an ending, sometimes it is a beginning. When you walk away from those who refuse to understand you, you create space for those who will. You create space for relationships built on mutual respect, not emotional labor. You create space for conversations that nourish, not drain. You create space for voices that listen, not argue. And most importantly, you create space for your own growth. Distance is not a wall. It is a doorway. It leads you back to yourself, to your intuition, your dignity, your inner peace. Walking away is not a closing chapter. It is turning the page towards something healthier. In the end, walking away is one of the highest forms of self-love. It means you believe you are worthy of peace, worthy of clarity, worthy of relationships where your voice does not have to fight to be heard. Worthy of environments where your presence is appreciated, not questioned. When you walk away from people who don't truly listen, you send a powerful message to your own soul. I deserve better, and I will no longer settle for less. And that message becomes the foundation of your strength for the rest of your life. Walking away is not disrespect, it is the moment you finally choose yourself. And so, my friends, there comes a time when you must step back from the noise and return to the truth of who you are. You are never meant to spend your life begging for understanding or fighting for clarity in places that thrive on confusion. Your voice is too precious to be wasted. Your heart is too sacred to be mishandled. And your spirit is too bright to be dimmed by people who refuse to open their eyes. Stand tall in your truth. Speak once. Speak with conviction, and let the rest fall silent. If someone is meant to understand you, they will. If someone is meant to value you, they will. And if they don't, let them go. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but out of deep, unwavering self-respect. Walk in the direction of peace. Surround yourself with people who hear your meaning, not just your words, people who honor your presence, not question it. Let your silence be strong, let your boundaries be firm, let your spirit be free. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who don't listen is the moment you return home to yourself. And there is no place more powerful, more peaceful, or more liberating than that. You are enough, you are worthy, and you owe no one an explanation for choosing your peace.